remember her seeing her coming out, and I was like looking in like the rear side view mirror and could just see her like very emotional and crying. And it was just like, all right, this just got very real.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 2. This is Shauna.
And this is Rosalina. And we're your hosts for Too Young for This Shit podcast. This podcast is not just about boobs, but our journey with cancer. We are young millennials, open about giving you a raw and unfiltered look into our lives. We are in no way medical professionals, nor are we offering medical advice. Any medical references are cited directly from public websites or from our personal diagnosis. Some topics and stories may be triggering to those who are fighting, have fought, or have loved someone with cancer. Hey everyone, it's Rosalina.
And this is Shauna. Welcome back to the Too Young for This Shit podcast. I am super excited today because I have my partner Matt with me. I talked a lot about Matt in season 1. And I'm just really excited he's here and everyone kind of gets to hear a little bit about him and share his perspective on my cancer diagnosis and the roles he played during it. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Before we dive into like the deeper questions, I want our listeners to get to know you. So can you please give like just a brief intro about like who you are?
Okay, great. I'm 34 years old. I live in New York with Shauna and our little guy, Phoenix, our dog. I'm sure you've talked about her before.
Yes, always.
He's
a great thing.
He's the mascot. He's very proud of himself. I work in retail construction and favorite color is orange. I don't know. This is like a dating thing.
I heard that you golf.
Yeah, not well, but I try.
He golfs a lot.
I try to get out as much as I can when we don't have anything going on.
And fun fact, Matt played college basketball.
I did. I didn't play much, but I was on a team for a couple of years.
You're downplaying yourself, Matt.
Yeah, I know. He did. He played college basketball for D1 school, and we always joke around, and I kind of always tell him he peaked in high school. He's like, I played college basketball, and he's like,
she doesn't think it's a big deal.
He still peaked in high school.
Some people think
it is a big deal. I just like to mess with you.
I didn't play much though, so I can't boast too much about it.
So let's get into our relationship. Can you give a brief intro about how we met and how long we've been together? And kind of our story is so ridiculous.
I had to ask her what story she gave.
We don't know.
The beginnings are a little fuzzy. We met probably 10 years ago. We've kind of known each other. We small towns, like neighboring towns, so had like the same like friends circles and groups. So we kind of hung out a bunch after college, and then kind of started a relationship and kind of blossomed from there. And both lived in New York City and got to spend a lot of time together in New York City. And then I moved away, went to Detroit, which she wasn't thrilled about. And then I was there for a few years, and then we rekindled everything.
We broke up for a year and then
took a break, and then rekindled everything after a short little break. Mm-hmm. And then I moved back, and then we ended up moving in together.
Nice. Like, who made the first move? You know, Matt, like you didn't explain that. Was it you? Was it Shauna?
Yeah, well, I guess I did. She doesn't remember. So she doesn't know where we had our first kiss, but I did.
Apparently we had our first kiss like a solid 6 months before I thought our first kiss was. It's so funny too, because I think like we started kind of like hooking up, and I know like I wouldn't admit that it was like something. And I just kept being like, I was like, oh, so you guys are like seeing each other. I'm like, no, we're not. And then like I wouldn't admit it, and then he wouldn't admit it. And then we had like a conversation. We don't even have like a real anniversary. We just say we made one up. It's the third Friday of January every year. So there's no like set date. It's just the third Friday. And that's our
Love it.
It's like rolling anniversary.
Yeah. It's like very on brand for our relationship.
And we forgot it this year.
We did forget it.
At least both of you did, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We remembered in like February.
Yeah, it was like a week. Yeah, like the first week of February. I'm like, oh, we missed our anniversary. So our relationship like timeline is a little fuzzy. We're just gonna say that.
Matt, let's get into it.
Okay.
The beginning of Shauna's cancer diagnosis. What were your initial thoughts when you were told that your partner Shauna was diagnosed with breast cancer?
Yeah, I remember like the first, I don't know if it was like a test or exam that you went to. I think it might have been the mammogram or the PET scan or something before.
No, it was the sonogram mammogram.
Sonogram, yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember that. Because it was like COVID times, I couldn't go in with her. So I was
right. Yeah.
I was in the car, just sitting in the car outside. I'm in the middle of like Midtown Manhattan, just waiting and just, sitting there trying not to think about everything that she was going through, but like constantly thinking about it and not sure, trying to think of like worst case, best case and how to react and to, try to comfort her and try not to layer on anything more. So it was I've never really dealt with a significant other having something so serious like that before. It's like one of those like remember where you were moments, because I drive past there quite a bit or walk past there quite a bit in the city, so like constantly reminded of it, and it was just a crazy time.
Yeah, I drove past that place recently and I was like, fuck that place.
Yeah. I remember when, I don't think you had the results, but they told you that they were pretty sure. And I remember I was like parked up the block a little bit, and I remember seeing her coming out, and I was like looking in like the rear or side view mirror and could just see her like very emotional and crying. And it was just like, all right, this just got very real.
I guess like during that time when you were in the car, you were just prepping for the worst case.
Yeah. And we had a drive from New York City to Long Island, and I think I just cried the whole way.
2.5 hour drive. And it's like, I remember just driving in the car and just sounding like a broken record and not knowing what to say, but just trying to be comforting and telling her, it's going to be okay, but really knowing that it's not, it's going to be a huge life change and huge experience and ordeal that she'll have to go through. And then I will have to help out as well.
He was so calm though. Like his reaction just was like very like, he was definitely scared because I was also like hysterical in the car, but he was like so good in that moment for sure of just staying calm and not like amping me up. And like, we weren't like feeding off each other's emotions.
Yeah. Just trying to bottle it up as much as possible and just kind of be there for her to lean on and just kind of take whatever she was going through, eat it up.
How did you regulate your emotions? Like, I mean, was there any time where you did let out how you felt, or did you just, try to stay calm whenever she needed you?
No, I think Shauna would say I'm pretty good at just kind of bottling up a lot, whatever I'm going through, just kind of getting it. So yeah, I mean, especially with her, I didn't want to bring anything, make a big deal out of something that didn't need to be, whatever we were going through or I was going through. So just be the sounding board for her, whatever she was going through, and just kind of listen to her and take it all in and try and keep even keel and support her as best I can.
Right. Yeah. How about with your friends and family? Were you the same way? Did you regulate your emotions with them, or were you a little bit more open about how you actually felt?
Yeah, I think, for the most part, tried to kind of just keep it the same all the way through. There were definitely times or whatever, if I was, walking the dog or doing something on my own where, just kind of let it out, however that is. But yeah, for the most part, just tried to be the steady force for her and kind of keep it even keeled.
Thinking about how you were feeling as her partner and her right side person, you also have feelings. And I'm just like really surprised how you were able to bottle up all your emotions just throughout the whole case. I'm sure that wasn't, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that wasn't healthy at some point.
No, definitely not healthy, but it's something I've always done. So it wasn't that big a change. Yeah.
But I feel like you talked to your parents. You were pretty honest with your parents.
Yeah. I was, I had a couple friends that like from high school that I hadn't talked to in years kind of reached out to me. They had either their family or their significant others went through something similar and kind of just, bounce some questions off of them. And they were really helpful and supportive of, just kind of telling me like, look, there's really, you're going to feel helpless. Like that's normal. The biggest thing is just to be available and to listen. So that was huge advice for me to kind of look at it through that lens.
That's really great advice. Did you do any research online about breast cancer just during like Shauna's doctor visits and such?
Yeah. I was constantly on like Google on my phone anytime I had like a chance to whatever, she was coming back to me and explaining certain things, I'd have to Google it and research. And then even when we were when I was able to go into like the doctor's meetings, just trying to take as many notes as possible, just had like a pen and a notebook and just writing everything down and then, Googling it after and trying to figure out what the hell all these terms and different numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably felt like super overwhelmed.
I still to this day couldn't name her exact diagnosis because it just confuses me all the time.
Yeah.
But that is very much like you, Rosalina. Like he gave me a printed out list of questions to ask the breast surgeon.
That's so funny.
He did it.
Yeah, that's so nice.
And he took like impeccable notes. Like he wrote down everything in like keynote type form, kind of like you. And yeah, you guys both get me through. Like,
we're similar.
Yeah. So, the notes thing was just huge because it's just like so many thoughts are going through your head. And for her, I didn't want her to have to be writing stuff down. I just wanted her to like listen and process it however, and I kind of just tried to stay focused and listen to what the doctor was saying and just kind of write it all down. That way at the end, if she had any questions or because I feel like she was going into these and there's just so many thoughts in her head that when we got out, she would almost be like blacked out, like what just happened. So I
said it like every time. I was like, I blacked out. After I would hear something I didn't want to hear and I blacked out. And then I'd have to get in the car and like get a recap from Matt, like almost every, like, especially in the beginning appointments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so fair.
Yeah.
That's so fair. Oh my gosh.
I think it wasn't until like after surgery where I felt like super desensitized, I think, to everything. Mm-hmm. After that, I was like, I don't even care at this point, but like all those, like those hard moments and those beginning appointments are just like.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And then they're like, you're trying to get all the information, hear all your options, all your opinions. And then it's like, this was also before like I had ever heard about the Abridge app. Like, I wish that's used like even more in like doctors.
You told me about that and I use it constantly.
Yeah. I've been using it as well. Like, I wish doctors were like kind of promoting it so that we like could just.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to understand our diagnosis in the first visit.
God, no.
Yeah.
Abridge is an app that records your doctor's appointments. And I think it transcribes it too, right?
It does. Yes, it does.
But you can go back and listen to the whole meeting.
I thought about recording it, but I was like, I don't know if this is like allowed or if it's a violation or what.
I know.
Yeah, in certain states, it's like illegal to record somebody without their knowledge.
So I just tried to write as much as I could down. But definitely, if I knew about that app before, then that would have been very helpful.
Yeah, I know.
Moving forward to Shauna's treatments. So, Matt, what was the hardest part for you while Shauna was going through maybe like surgery, her recovery, chemotherapy, radiation? Was it what you expect treatment to be?
Yeah, for the surgery and stuff, I was like, obviously very nervous, but at the same time, like I felt that, we went to a couple different like healthcare facilities, hospitals, and I felt like she was comfortable with the one that she decided on. So I was very comfortable as well. And it was just like top notch, everything that we did, doctors would come in, they knew her name, all the information, knew the whole thing. So she didn't have to go through it each time. So I was very, very comfortable going into it, but obviously just, nervous for everything else that would happen. So as far as the surgery and stuff, that was okay. And on like a personal side, the facilities there were awesome. There was like a whole catering hall that I was thoroughly enjoying.
Oh, the snack room.
With like a omelet station and the whole lunch and breakfast and lunch.
Wow, no way.
You're talking about the hospital. The hospital has the best cafeteria in New York.
Yeah.
At NYU?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's so good. I had to go pop in there for a COVID test, and I ended up eating lunch there.
Yeah.
Before my exchange surgery.
I was in there just like...
I don't think I've ever been to the cafeteria at UCLA.
Well, NYU one.
Brian didn't
good.
either, but yeah.
Well,
NYU,
you didn't stay overnight, too.
That's true. I didn't.
Yeah, I think when you were overnight, that was like a weird feeling too, like coming home and just like empty and just kind of being here and like eating and hanging out, watching TV and just kind of knowing like what she was going through and her just kind of being in the hospital alone was pretty tough to get through, even though you had like all the...
I loved it there. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, when we went back the next day, she was not in any rush to get out.
I was actually kind of upset you were already on the way because I was going to stay another night. But I was nervous because we had gone to like plastic surgeon appointment before surgery, and Matt was like listening to talking about drains and what it was going to be like and incisions, and I remember the doctor left and Matt was like white as a ghost and was like, I don't feel good. And I'm like, I didn't even have surgery yet. Like, are you going to be okay? Did you remember that?
Yeah, they were like talking I don't know if it was talking about like whatever it was. It was like some like cutting something out, and it just like hit me, and just I got very queasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, white as a ghost, and I was like, are you okay? And he's like, I don't feel good. I was like, if you can't handle this, you can go in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Are you still like that now?
No, I don't know. I don't know what it was they talked about, but just something just kind of hit me and
it spooked you.
Yeah.
But not as much. I haven't had anything like that since. It's just that one time.
Yeah, it was one time. And then I was like, I at that point too, I was like, he has to strip my drains. I'm not doing it. Like, is he going to make it through this surgery? I was like, literally at this point, we're worried about like you getting through it than me getting through it.
Right. So how about like chemotherapy or like radiation? Was that hard for you to watch her go through that? Or the other question is, was the treatment that she was getting like what you expected, or was it completely different?
I don't know if you would agree, but for me, I thought it kind of, the time flew by. I mean, we were in there for like 4 or 5 hours, but I felt like it was very fast.
I was like,
I was just sitting there the whole time.
I was in a coma, so.
But yeah, it was once again, it was just like a weird feeling of her kind of, dozing on and off or in and out of like sleeping, and just kind of watching her body react to these drugs that they're putting in her. And and then the cold cap, and it was just like a weird experience, and just kind of having to sit there and watch your partner kind of deal with all this, and not, knowing that it's in the end, long run, it's good for her, but obviously at the moment it's just like doing so much to her body. So that was a weird feeling. There
was like a full snack room, like a whole room full of like soda, drinks, crackers, snacks. And he just like helped himself.
Yeah, I was just walking around the place.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, honestly, the amount of money like I spent at that place, like you own the snack room at this point.
Yeah.
So
after the first time, I was like kind of, being careful or whatever. And then after this first time, it's like, all right, this is our home.
Yeah.
This is.
And I was like, we're taking snacks for the road. Like he would be passing me pretzels. I'm like half alive. But like he had to put my cold cap on too. And I was like, I talked about it in season 1, like super triggered by the cold cap, the smell of the cold cap, getting it on, the tugging. And like, I would have like tears streaming. This is even before like getting the chemo medicine. I would be crying because I was just like, the smell of it was making me nauseous, and like he had to put my cap on. Like there was no offer of like a professional capper at my facility. So it was basically like, you watch these movies. Matt and I had to watch like a tutorial movie and basically figure it out ourselves. And like some of the nurses, so I mean, I had like my one chemo nurse like majority of the time, but the first 4 I switched. I bounced around a lot with different, I think it was, the first 4 I had different nurses for the first 4, the hardest ones. And one woman was like, I have no idea what to do. So Matt had to be the one that put it on every time. I always felt really bad. And there was a couple of chemos that I went into just like really upset, just know, especially I think with, doing AC, like just knowing I was going to feel like shit the next like 5 days and just like being anxious about it. He saw like some major breakdowns at chemo too.
Yeah. Putting on the cold cap was definitely, it wasn't the easiest job to do. Just because you have to get it on like so tight. And I could tell that she was very concerned about it fitting right. And it's just very like, it's not something you just slide on. Like you have to be pretty rough and kind of pull at the elastic bands to get it tight.
Yeah.
So at times I felt like I was kind of like manhandling her in her head, but knowing that's what she wanted, because she wanted to be as tight as possible to be effective. So, and like she said, there wasn't really like, we watched the video. There was one nurse that kind of showed us how to do it, but otherwise it was on me to do it every time. And then, if we were going every other week, each week was almost like a new time doing it. So
I think just also by the time I switched to Taxol, like I had such a better reaction. Like I just felt like a normal person. So like, not that chemo was just way easier to go to, just being like, okay, like it's every week I'm checking these boxes off, so my spirits, I think, were a little higher. So I think but that smell of the cold cap was like the worst part.
Yeah. Yeah. You did not like that.
It was like instant. Like I would honestly get so nauseous instantly. I was taking Zofran before I even got to chemo because I just couldn't even like stomach the smell. And so, and he had have to like wet my hair in the bathroom and we would both be soaking wet. And like, he would help me because I would have my port. So I had, like the pre-meds going in, and he'd help me like get my big comfy. Oh
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like he kind of did it all. So
we had a little process going.
Yeah.
Made it easier.
I know that you mentioned that like, the doctors in the hospital that Shauna chose, is like she felt comfortable and thought that they were like the great hospital and doctors for her. You also felt the same. But besides, I guess, just that, was there something that you wish that Shauna did differently?
I knew that she was like doing her homework, and, I didn't want to be like forceful on what she should do. There were like some family, friends, or coworkers that kind of reached out, that people that, were trying to connect me with people that went through something similar that she was going through. So I tried to like make some connections there. And at first I was kind of upset that she wasn't like reaching out to these people, but then I realized that, she's got to do it her way. And, right. I can only suggest and try to offer help, but ultimately it's, whatever she's comfortable with. And I knew that it wasn't like she was just going into it blindly. She was doing all the necessary research and preparation. So, I was very, very confident in what she's done and how she was going into it.
Yeah. I think like, when you get information from like other people, like sometimes that information doesn't involve like what Shauna is going through. Cause like each diagnosis is different. Yeah. Everyone's journey is different. Someone could say, hey, Shauna should do this, but it's like, it doesn't even pertain to her because maybe she's hormone positive or,
Right.
So,
right. And also too, like, I mean, there was obviously people that were super close to me that like, like my friend Nicole, whose mom and sister both had passed from it and had just like major family history and did a, she did a preventative mastectomy. So I felt super, and I'm around her all the time. So I felt comfortable talking to her, but it would be like a coworker who went through it, where it was Matt's coworker. And I'm like, I don't know this person. And it's a connection to him. And like, it was sometimes easier to like talk to people in the support groups that were like truly, truly strangers rather than like a degree of separation.
Yes. Yeah,
I don't know if everyone feels like that, but I think for me, I just needed to, you're right. Like I needed to like just do it my way. That was my way of being in control of my own situation.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So Matt, I know, like Shauna and I in season 1, we talked about fertility. So Shauna also mentioned this funny story that you had to do when they had to collect your sperm.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't even tell him I told that story until he listened to it.
Other than that, like, what was the IVF experience like for you?
It was the wee pads on the couch was like scarring. That was
okay. Yeah,
honestly, right. I'm like, I want to like almost like post the picture so everyone could see. Like, poor Matt had to go to this room with like the art on the wall was uncomfortable. The wee pads on the couch. Like, Matt didn't even want to touch the remote. Like, it was just like, and then the lady who walked you in, like, there was just like whoever had watched their video before Matt.
It's just on the screen.
It was on the screen. So the woman went to like walk him in and like explain the TV to him. And there was just like porn blasting on the TV. I'll never forget your face walking out of there. I was just dying. Like his face was just this smirk of like, he could not wait to tell me just like what was in that room.
It was a very, very memorable experience. And like, the room that they put you in is on one side. It's the only room on that side of the office. So everybody, and you walk right out into the waiting room. So everybody knows what you were doing in there. But like the biggest thing was, that I had to keep telling myself that there were people in there for like, there was, might have been their last chance to have kids. So I had to, that's why I was grinning and holding back like my real emotion of what just happened. But I was eager to call my friends right after and tell them the whole experience. And
of course,
they couldn't.
I mean,
believe
you have
it.
to,
Yeah.
It was like, honestly, it just like and it's not a joke. Like he said, like there's people in there that like they're spending so much money and like they know like maybe somebody only had like one time that they could afford to like have this, and like it like wasn't like we shouldn't have been in there like fucking around thinking this is a joke, because it wasn't a joke. Like we didn't even know what my results were going to be, but it did make the situation like light. Everyone that listens to our podcast, like, I need to laugh, I need to make this funny somehow, and like that was kind of like our way to do that.
Yeah, we tried to make it somewhat light, and I did have a pretty, I guess, crude joke when we were coming up the elevator and like the doors are about to open. I looked, I go, "You need to get me horny." And as I said that, the door opened and somebody was walking in. So they definitely heard that. So
I was in the stirrups making jokes to the fertility doctor, like the entire time, like it was a joke. And it wasn't a joke. Like it was very, very real and serious and expensive.
Fast forward to like just a few weeks ago, I just was working across the street from that facility. And so I was there for like a month, just kind of checking in every day at this job, and just going by there every day. I was just giggling to myself every time I looked over across the street and saw the sign.
I mean, it brings like some sense of like lighthearted laughter, into the most traumatic experience that you guys have gone through.
We did have a lot of that, he was really good with like turning it on and turning it off. He kind of always had that sense of like, we can joke about this, and like now is not the time to joke about this. Like I would say something like that would be like super dark, like super dark where he didn't think it was funny.
Once Shauna has mentioned that she needed to do IVF before chemotherapy, was that an easy choice for you, Matt? Or did you had any reservations about creating embryos together?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had to think about it. When she first went for the test, it was just like a light switch went on. Everything got very real very quickly. And that was just like another step where it was like, okay, like this is, it's not just the present right now, but it's, for the future as well. So it was just something I just definitely had to, take a step back and think about. And, we had some discussions and figure out, okay, do this right now, but then, what does it mean in the future? And, what is our future? So it's just very, honest conversations and, looking at things, not in the present, but further down the road and really trying to figure out, what's going to come out of this.
Yeah, right. And I don't know if you felt this way, but in terms of like Brian and I, we were forced in that situation to talk about the future and having kids together. You guys always talked about the future together.
Yeah. I mean, we have like talked about the future, but it was always, it was never, like it wasn't a definite thing or, it was just kind of, yeah, well, when that comes, it'll come and we'll go from there. But this was more of a, this is what's going to be the future. This is what the future is going to be. So need to decide now.
It's hard to also be talking about the future when like you have this situation at the moment that is like kind of like taking over. Right. So it was like hard to get, like a cancer diagnosis, like knowing what's coming, it's surgery, it's this and that. Like it was really kind of hard to be like, okay, like how are we going to sit here and like talk about like, and I am not a normal person to where like I was overthinking everything. Like I was asking him questions about situations that like probably nobody on the planet would ever actually be in. Like I was like, well, what if this happens? And like, what if we don't end up, we're not married? What happens if we don't end up together? This is my only chance at having a child. What are we going to do? If I decide to do it, do you want to be a part of the kid's life? Like, it was just so many questions. I was spiraling. Like, I was like, I need you to be like, at least thinking about these questions in case of anything. I kind of really took it like really, really, really far. And he was kind of like, I think you had said at one point, like, that sounds like a future Matt problem, like basically being like, you're being a lot and like, we don't have to figure out every little aspect of this situation because like, it may happen. It may never like ever happen. I was like being a little obsessive and crazy over the what ifs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you were, but I also think it was good to have those talks anyway, even though some of the stuff might be like far fetched or whatever. And like, there's 0% chance of that happening, but it was good to just, put it all out there and have an honest conversation and really kind of go through everything and the different possibilities and make sure, the decision that we were going to make was going to, that we kind of exhausted all efforts to think it through.
And at the same time, it was like a lot to even be like, do you want to do this? Like, do you want to create embryos? Like, I knew I was going to freeze eggs, but like, it wasn't until like we got down to the IVF where they, were telling us, there's better chances with embryos. And Matt lived in Detroit for a couple of years, then came back to New York. Matt ended up switching jobs. And then our end goal was to like move in together. At that point, I never thought about like us. I always thought about like us having kids, but I just wanted us to be like living together in the same city. Like that was like really like my priority at that time, but that was like the end goal for me is like for us just to be here in New York together, living together. But now I have like a cancer diagnosis. Like I had to be fully present in that fight. And then like, now the two of us have to have this conversation about like the possibility of like future kids. I didn't wrap my head around it until we had to fill out that packet of paperwork
and get it notarized and
the whole thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like difficult. And then I felt like a lot of pressure. I didn't want to be like, will you do this for me? I was like, is this something like you want to do? Like, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I didn't want to put pressure on him. Like I knew I was going to freeze eggs regardless, but yeah, after like a lot of conversations, and we made the decision we did, and I feel good about it. You're there.
Like decide to do it together. And,
yeah.
Do you think that the IVF process, like the shots, the cost, and the results, was worth it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot to do, and I don't know. I don't know if we'll know if it's worth it until ultimately we need to use it. But I think it's a great, I don't know, insurance policy or what, but it's nice to have that option, down the road. Was it worth it? Yes, definitely. Right now in the present, because it gives us that option in the future and allows us, to someday come to that decision on what we want to do with those embryos. But it's definitely a lot of money.
Yes, definitely a lot of money.
And it's like, that's only the beginning. Like we have to then defrost. We still have to do genetic testing. We still have to figure out if we're doing a surrogate, or if I'm going to be healthy enough to want to carry a child. We haven't even hit the cost threshold yet of how expensive this is going to be. And
and the storage fee.
God, yeah. That year came
annually.
Quick. That year of $1,000 came up quick.
I just called them today because I was like, wait, I didn't receive anything in the mail or an email about I have to pay up for a storage fee. $800.
You have to pay $1,000.
I'm not sure what the difference is.
Yeah, I mean, I know at this point, I know. But honestly, it's a future Matt and Shauna problem that we'll figure out, down the line.
Yeah. So Matt, do you feel Shauna is a different person now post-cancer? And if so, in what ways?
I think anybody that goes through that, I don't know, I just think you're I don't think it's necessarily more than you were in the past, but you're definitely, with your social media posts and people reaching out, I think you've become, with this podcast as well, kind of have, I don't know, pay it forward or what, but just kind of, you have all this, unfortunately, you have all this experience. And I think the fact that you're willing to share it publicly and, privately with friends and other people that reach out to you, I think it's incredible to kind of put your story out there and then, be willing to help and support others, that, might just be some stranger on the internet that reached out to you.
It was the Verizon Fios girls today at the door. Right? It was do your checks, ladies. One of us my mom had breast cancer. It's get genetic testing. I don't know, they're at my door trying to sell me cable, and I'm do your breast exams. Come lunatic to strangers.
But you feel the need to.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But I will say, I'll add to that, Shauna has made a difference already. There's women out there that listen to the podcast who reaches out and wanting to know, the different things that Shauna has purchased for her mastectomy surgery, or about chemotherapy and any advice and tips that she may have. So you've already made a difference, Shauna. Matt, in the beginning of this year, and probably even after post-treatment, Shauna has really struggled. How has that been for you, seeing her struggle, thinking that once you're finished with treatment, people picture it as okay, you're done, now you can live your life, but that didn't go as well as we thought it would be in this case for Shauna?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you go through this whole process and, we're going on 18, 19 months now since the first diagnosis or first appointment.
Yeah.
And it is, people are always asking me how is she doing? And I'm she's okay. She's, technically you're cancer free, but it's not it's over. Which I kind of knew. My father had prostate cancer. He did the surgery and whatnot, but then every year he goes in for 3 or 4 checkups, and it's just kind of, it never really goes away. I feel you're always either reminded about it or, having to go in for these appointments. So in that sense, I feel like it will just probably be with us forever. And, we'll always have to be careful and, she'll have to be alert and just kind of aware and not let things slip through the cracks. And so in that sense, it just feels like it's something we've kind of, for me, I feel like we've just kind of adapted to. And, it's just, unfortunately, it's part of life. And, we'll kind of live our life around it, and do what we want to do and everything like that. But, we still have to be conscious of everything that she went through and just kind of always, think about that in the back of your mind as far as, just like going forward with everything.
The pain from like all my hormone blocking meds. Like you saw like me, I couldn't like barely walk. My limbs did not move. Like my ankles, my joints didn't move. Like, and I was crying all the time. And like, it was like frustrating. I was like I was miserable. Like I was making myself miserable. Like it was just so sad. Like it just was so like broken. Like that was the word. I was just so beyond broken. And I think like, I think there was a point, not that you got fed up, but there was definitely a point where you were kind of like, I think you were just like, we should be enjoying this time now. We're not running to hospital centers. Like, you're done with surgery for now. Like we should be enjoying it. And I just like physically, mentally just broken. And like that, you had to see that. That was probably just as worse as seeing me at chemo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. It's definitely tough because you are like you feel like, all right, this is over, surgery's done, chemo's done, radiation's done. Like, let's go live our life. Let's go do stuff. But then, it is like, your body can only take so much, especially with everything else that you're, like you said, like the hormones and everything else that you're going through, where I just, for me personally, I have to always kind of remind myself, like, we can do stuff, but we might not be able to do, as much, if we want to go out one night or, go do stuff during the day that, you are going to be tired, if you're going through all this stuff, you're working as well. Like, it's just different ability to
and the anxiety too. Yeah. Like I was so in my own head of being like, it's just so anxious all the time that it was like holding me back and then therefore was holding him back. And like, that wasn't fair. And it was like really hard to kind of, being off my meds, my hormone blockers. Like I finally feel like I'm a little bit more myself now. Like I definitely feel better and like wanting to do more things. And I mean, it's been like a busy couple of months, but I feel like we're kind of getting into a new normalcy.
Matt, do you feel that cancer has brought you and Shauna like closer as a couple or just added more hardship to your relationship?
I think it's definitely brought us closer, like with the IVF, these real conversations that you're having, about yourselves and about the future definitely brought us together more. And then, just kind of, dealing with the different hardships. I think, you can come out two ways, really. You can either grow apart or, I think you even get a tighter and stronger bond. And I think fortunately we've come out on the positive end of that.
Yeah. We see in the support groups a bunch of like a lot of women whose partners leave them the second they're done with treatment. And it's very common, like just, it's, it becomes so,
I was just going to mention that.
Trained that it really does. Like, you're right. It goes one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, it's, tested us and our relationship, but I think ultimately we both, just want to be there for each other. And, I try to support her through everything. And I think she's trying to be conscious of everything that I'm dealing with as well. So.
Yeah. So Matt, how was being a caregiver like affect your day to day?
Yeah, it was, it was definitely tough. The drains or something I wouldn't wish anybody had to deal with.
I don't know why. Like I would give myself shots for IVF, but I would not strip my own drains.
It was just tough because you're like stripping.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm shocked, Shauna, actually, because I wouldn't even let Brian touch my drains.
Like he just did it from the top.
Yeah, I was gonna say the drains though. It's just like with the drains, the way you have to do it, you have to be like very aggressive and like, you know, like stringing these things out. And I just the whole time I'm like, God, I'm gonna like pull this out, and then we're gonna have to rush her back to the hospital.
I would like hold it too. So like he would do it and would do it aggressively, so we didn't have to do it like multiple times. He just did it so fast and efficient, and I'm glad, because if I would have had to do it, it would have just but he did it from the jump, like, and I don't even think I asked you to do it. I think you just did it. Like I did ask?
Yeah. Or the doctor asked if I was comfortable doing it.
Oh, okay.
So they like released you.
Okay. All right. Well, then
it was like another thing where they just, you know, they show it to you once and then you go and
send you on your way. Yeah. It's true. It's so true.
I did my own drains, but Brian would be so adamant about like, hey, did you write the number on the paper? Did you write how much there was in the cup? I'm not sure if you were like that, Matt, too, like trying to jot down everything morning and night.
Down the times, like all of my pills, all of like, he came in with a grid, like an Excel spreadsheet of like everything that every time I took a med, when I took it, how much fluid, like I'm telling you, you guys are like,
I wanted
kindred spirits over here.
I wanted to get like, we had like the clipboard. I wanted to get like the hook on the door. So it's just like, and had it all there for her.
The other question I wanted to ask is, since your life was more involved around Shauna and her diagnosis, did you had any time for yourself?
Yeah. I don't know if you mentioned, but like while she was going through this, I was in between jobs. So I was trying to leave my previous job, and then it just kind of lined up with her going through everything where I explained it to my boss and we had like a mutual parting. So then I was, you know, no job, but was able to concentrate and help her out 100%. So that was a huge, huge benefit. So I had a lot of time and a lot of time to help her. And then, you know, I had some time to do my own thing as well. So it was nice to have that time where I could, you know she was okay. And whether it was family watching her or just, you know, she was okay to be on her own, where I could kind of get out and, you know, like go play golf or play basketball or do whatever, and get that time, you know, where I could somewhat get my mind off everything that was going on and, you know, be able to relax and recharge and then, you know, have that little separation where I could kind of just let my mind go.
And I was very like supportive of that. Like there was a chemo he missed because he went on like a big golf trip with his friends and he felt like so bad about it. And he was like, I'll come, I'll leave early, I'll come. And I was like, no, like absolutely not. Like, go on your golf trip, like go, like you deserve it. Like you've done nothing but like be with me. I'm fine. Like my sister took me to chemo. It was fine. And like, I really did try to like make sure that he was like trying to enjoy himself. It was summer too, you know, like if he wanted to go out, I wanted him to go out. If he wanted to play golf, I wanted him to golf. Like I won't say that like either one of us are like super codependent on each other. Really. No. I think like we both like had, we did a long distance relationship for a couple of years and just like knew how to do things alone. Like we didn't constantly have to be together all the time. And I really was like, you deserve like the time, go golf. Like I'll be fine. You know, like I just like wanted him to be able to like have that outlet of him, you know, having his time, like me time, but like his time, you know.
Yeah.
But I also wanted me time too.
Of course. I feel like you need like you need some time to yourself. Maybe it's like, 30 minutes, an hour.
Yeah.
Whatever is perfect for you. But like I feel that everyone needs some time to themselves for sure. What advice would you give to other caregivers in the same position as you?
Yeah, I think just kind of like what I mentioned before, it's, what one of my friends said to me was just, you're going to feel helpless and like, that's okay. But just the biggest thing you can do is just to be present, be available and to listen. And that really kind of hit me. It was like, yeah, this is something I've never dealt with. So I don't know what I'm doing. And, for the most part, she doesn't either. She hasn't experienced it either, but just to be there and, whatever she needs, whether it's just somebody to vent to, either she asks questions or just, needs me to run out to the store and get her something, just kind of to be there and be available. Personally, I thought that was like the best thing I could do, is just to make sure anything that she needed, I could take care of it.
You just like knew what I needed when I needed it. Like when I just like needed you to be like, this fucking sucks. Like, right. And you would be like, yeah, this really fucking sucks. Like rather than spinning it and having like the positive, like, and just even too, like in the beginning, you're just like, we'll get through this. Like, we're going to get through this like together. And it was just like so nice, because I don't think I could have done it without, I know I couldn't have done it without you. Like, I can't imagine going through this. I'm going to cry. This experience without you.
Thank you all for listening and supporting our podcast. Sharing our stories with you has been incredibly healing for both of us, and we hope it helps other women in their journeys through breast cancer.
Ladies, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and fellow breasties. Help us reach more women by subscribing and rating us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at TYFTS Podcast and email us at tyftspodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys, so shoot us a message. We will link any resources from the episode in our show notes.